Welcome to the history of North America. I'm Mark Vinet. The people European explorers met when their ships first landed in North America during the Age of Exploration marked the beginning of a monumental clash of civilizations that would remake the world order. Western civilization suddenly came face to face with the ancient civilizations of North America. Despite a brief period of initial amity and cooperation, their different economic, cultural, and religious identities soon were the primary sources of tension, then conflict. Primordial differences between the civilizations were too basic and destined to clash. The civilizations were differentiated from each other by history, language, culture, tradition, and most importantly, religion. These fundamental differences were the product of centuries, and the deep foundations of the two different civilizations would lead to inevitable competition, confrontation, and war. In this episode, we revisit the United States, Canada, and Mexico's ancient pre-Columbian cultures and civilizations that encountered Europeans on the continent during the late 15th and early 16th centuries. In anthropology, first contact is the initial meeting of two communities previously without contact with one another. Let's highlight a few movies, programs, documentaries, books, and music that showcase this unique and monumental North American clash, as well as other topics covered so far in this series. Captain from Castile is a historical adventure film released in 1947, starring Tyrone Power and Cesar Romero. Shot on location in Mexico, the film includes scenes of a volcano which was then erupting. It was the feature film debut of Jean Peters, who later married industrialist Howard Hughes, and of Mohawk actor Jay Silverheels, who portrayed Tonto on the television series The Lone Ranger. The film is an adaptation of the 1945 best-selling novel of the same name. This historical epic describes the protagonist's persecution at the hands of the Spanish Inquisition and his escape to the New World to join Conquistador Hernán Cortés in his famous expedition against Aztec Emperor Montezuma to conquer Mexico, a clash of civilizations discussed in episode 49 of this series. In episodes 14 to 16, we investigated the accuracy of Mel Gibson's Apocalypto. It depicts Mayan society as beautiful and sophisticated, but at the same time, very brutal. At its core, it's an old-fashioned chase movie, which takes the viewer on a roller coaster ride of chills and thrills. In many ways, the film is also very elegant and stylish. But, like all Mel Gibson historical epic films, Apocalypto is not for the squeamish or faint-hearted. Despite its splendor and craftsmanship, it's raw, violent, and graphic. So guardians of young children, beware. Gibson presents the Maya at their best and their worst. He portrays the Maya basically as no different from other ancient human cultures, a mixture of good, bad, positive, and negative elements. It's a film that also makes you think about the power structure of societies and how the elite maintain and expand their powers by sacrificing others, not themselves, always others. Leaders seem ready, willing, and able to sacrifice others for their perceived notion of what is good for society, which they maintain a firm grip upon. The Mayan religion, like all religions, serve the same function. They help people cope with the uncertainties of life and death, they explain the mysteries of the supernatural and the meaning of the soul, while defining the place of humans in the cosmos and reinforcing social and political values. Set in Yucatan, Mexico, around the year 1502, the film shows conquistador ships anchored off the coast and Spaniards making their way ashore, complete with a monastic mission holding up a cross, symbolizing the clash of civilizations about to begin. Elcano and Magellan, the first voyage around the world, is a 2019 Spanish computer-animated adventure film that retells the story of the 1519 circumnavigation led by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and Spanish navigator Juan Sebastian Elcano. You may recall we covered this epic clash of civilizations a while back in episode 51. Into the Rising Sun is an interesting documentary about the Portuguese age of exploration and bookends our deep dive into the Treaty of Tordesillas in episodes 27, 28, and 29, and make sure to enjoy the soundtrack inspired by the epoch. In that vein, I also viewed a very good History Channel 2006 documentary titled simply Conquistadors. Conquistadors were discussed in several of my recent episodes and are showcased in The Fountain, a 2006 American epic magical realism romantic drama film starring Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz. Blending elements of fantasy, history, spirituality, and science fiction, the film consists of 3 storylines involving conquistadors in New Spain, Queen Isabella, the Inquisition, Mayans, and a Mesoamerican pyramid. Production mainly took place on a soundstage in Montreal, Quebec, and the director used macro photography to create key visual effects. This movie, however, is unfocused and sometimes confusing, but it has gained a cult following since its release. Many conquistadors were born into the aristocracy known as Hidalgo families, and as such they were members of the Spanish nobility with some education, but without economic resources. Even some members of rich nobility families became soldiers or missionaries, but mostly not the firstborn heirs. It was thus the second, third, or fourth sons of nobles or hidalgos that joined. Attracted by the word Hidalgo, I blindly watched a film with my family titled Hidalgo, thinking it would feature conquistadors, but instead, it was about a Spanish Mustang horse named Hidalgo. We nevertheless enjoyed the flick, and my kids learned that modern horses were first brought to the Americas with the conquistadors, beginning with Columbus, who imported horses from Spain to the West Indies on his second voyage in 1493. Horses came to the mainland with the arrival of Hernán Cortés in 1519. By 1525, Cortés had imported enough horses to create a nucleus of horse breeding in Mexico. The Mustang is a free-roaming horse of the western United States, descended from horses brought to the Americas by the Spanish. In my episode 44, we joined Spanish conquistador Ponce de León on his quest for the Fountain of Youth and exploration of Florida. I recently watched an old biography channel profile of the explorer which was, despite its age, still very good. Even the Rain is a 2010 drama film chronicling the shooting of a film depicting the Spanish conquest of the New World and inevitable clash of civilizations, the imposition of Spanish authority over the natives, and a subsequent indigenous rebellion. The film was nominated as Spain's entry for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. Seven Cities of Gold is a 1955 historical adventure film starring Anthony Quinn. It tells the story of the 18th century Franciscan priest, Father Junipero Serra, and the founding of the first missions in what is now California. The screenplay is based on the 1951 novel The 9 Days of Father Serra by Isabel Gibson Ziegler. The tagline of the film was, "This is the story of the making and the forging of California, when men chose gold or God, the sword or the cross." Cabeza de Vaca is a 1991 Mexican film about the adventures of Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, an early Spanish explorer, as he traversed what later became the southeast United States. Profiled in episode 57 of this series, he was one of 4 survivors of the expedition and shipwreck. He became known as a shaman among the Native American tribes he encountered, which helped him survive. His journey of a number of years began in 1528. After his return to Spain, he published his journal in 1542. The screenplay is based on his journal. The film was nominated as Mexico's entry for the Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. On a lighter side, my teenage son, partner, and sound technician, Sean, recently saw Jungle Cruise, a 2021 American fantasy adventure film based on Walt Disney's eponymous theme park attraction and starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Emily Blunt, Paul Giamatti, and a few undead conquistadors in the ultimate clash of civilizations. East of Mexico and south of Florida, the islands of the Caribbean were introduced in episode 26. The 2008 television action series Crusoe and the 1954 Mexican adventure film The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe are both based on the 1719 book by Daniel Defoe, which is claimed to be second only to the Bible in its number of translations. Generally seen as a contender for the first English novel, this story of fiction is presented as an autobiography of the title character, a castaway who spends 28 years on a remote tropical desert island near the coast of Trinidad before ultimately being rescued. Trinidad is the larger and more populous of the two major islands of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. It is the southernmost island in the West Indies and was visited by Christopher Columbus on his third voyage in 1498. Next time, Jacques Cartier returns as leader of a new expedition to sail up the mighty St. Lawrence River in 1535. I'm Mark Vinette, and thanks for joining me. It's always nice to have your company.